Stopped.
Oh, no, you're good. Yes,
Okay.
it's recording now.
Okay, just being sure. When it showed share
Alright.
screen, I freaked out.
Bye.
Okay, bye. You need to turn your volume up.
And what your child's experiencing in our classrooms. We're going to try to move through it as quickly as we can. So if you will please hold off the questions until the end, and we'll try to answer them then. There are 4 of us here tonight that will be presenting. My name is Tracy Shoemake. I'm a certified academic language therapist and a licensed dyslexia practitioner. I teach at both Crockett and Aiken. And Marcia.
Hello, guys. I'm Marcia Oates. I'm also a certified academic language therapist, and I'm a certified licensed dyslexic practitioner. Sorry, I can't stop and record, can I? I'm at Justice, and I do one class at Aiken right now. In the past, I've done the junior high, and so,
Andrea.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dandria Hughes. I am a dyslexia specialist. I'm in year 2 training for dyslexia, which I'll be completing this year. I do have 15 years in education as a classroom teacher. I teach classes at both Aiken primarily and at Crockett as well.
My name is Christy Garrett, and I teach reading by design at Justice.
Okay, and if everybody is ready, we will begin. The first thing that we want to show you, there is a video that we want to share with you that explains dyslexia really well.
Take a moment to read the following. How was that? Frustrating? Slow? What were those sentences about? They're actually a simulation of the experience of dyslexia, designed to make you decode each word. Those with dyslexia experience that laborious pace every time they read. When most people think of dyslexia, they think of seeing letters and words backwards, like seeing B as D and vice versa, or they might think people with dyslexia see saw as was. The truth is, people with dyslexia see things the same way as everyone else. Dyslexia is caused by a phonological processing problem, meaning people affected by it have trouble not with seeing language, but with manipulating it. For example, if you heard the word cat and then someone asked you, remove the C, what word would you have left? At. This can be difficult for those with dyslexia. Given a word in isolation like fantastic, students with dyslexia need to break the word into parts to read it. Fan, tas, tick. Time spent decoding makes it hard to keep up with peers and gain sufficient comprehension. Spelling words phonetically like STIK for stick and FRENS for friends is also common. These difficulties are more widespread and varied than commonly imagined. Dyslexia affects up to 1 in 5 people. It occurs on a continuum. One person might have mild dyslexia, while the next person has a profound case of it. Dyslexia also runs in families. It's common to see one family member who has trouble spelling, while another family member has severe difficulty decoding even one-syllable words like catch. The continuum and distribution of dyslexia suggest a broader principle to bear in mind as we look at how the brains of those with dyslexia process language. Neurodiversity is the idea that because all our brains show differences in structure and function, we shouldn't be so quick to label every deviation from the norm as a pathological disorder, or dismiss people living with these variations as defective. People with neurobiological variations like dyslexia, including such creative and inventive individuals as Picasso, Muhammad Ali, Whoopi Goldberg, Steven Spielberg, and Cher clearly have every capacity to be brilliant and successful in life. So here's the special way the brains of those with dyslexia work. The brain is divided into two hemispheres. The left hemisphere is generally in charge of language and ultimately reading, while the right typically handles spatial activities. fMRI studies have found that the brains of those with dyslexia rely more on the right hemisphere and frontal lobe than the brains of those without it. This means when they read a word, it takes a longer trip through their brain and can get delayed in the frontal lobe. Because of this neurobiological glitch, they read with more difficulty. But those with dyslexia can physically change their brain and improve their reading. With an intensive multisensory intervention that breaks the language down and teaches the reader to decode based on syllable types and spelling rules, the brains of those with dyslexia begin using the left hemisphere more efficiently while reading, and their reading improves. The intervention works because it locates dyslexia appropriately as a functional variation in the brain, which naturally shows all sorts of variations from one person to another. Neurodiversity emphasizes this spectrum of brain function in all humans and suggests that to better understand the perspectives of those around us, we should try to not only see the world through their eyes, but understand it through their brains.
Okay. There are actually two definitions of dyslexia that we use. I'll read this one. It is by the Texas Education Code. The other one, I'll go into more detail about explaining it. Dyslexia means a disorder of constitutional origin manifested by difficulty in learning to read, write, or spell despite conventional instruction, adequate intelligence, and sociocultural opportunity. Related disorders include disorders similar to or related to dyslexia, such as developmental dyslexia, developmental dysgraphia, and developmental spelling disability. The next definition comes from the International Dyslexia Association. It says that dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological. That just means it's brain-based, as you saw in the video. There are areas in the brain that are underdeveloped. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate, fluent word recognition. They may say tornado, but they may mean volcano. They may read was as saw. Those look or sound familiar or similar to each other. It is also by poor spelling. They miss sounds and letters within the words, and they use phonetic spellings a lot of times. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language. They have difficulty with letter clusters and their sounds, blending, isolating, or segmenting sounds. It's difficult for them to put it all together when they're reading. That's often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities. They have these difficulties, but have an average to above average intelligence or cognition. We use the term unexpected when explaining the identification of dyslexia. In the absence of print, the student's able to pull out knowledge from listening or their critical thinking skills and their context clues by doing that rather than gaining knowledge from reading. We also like to use the term Sea of Strengths by Sally Shaywitz. In her book, Overcoming Dyslexia, they can problem solve, they can reason, use critical thinking skills or high vocabulary to pull meaning out of what they're reading, but that doesn't align with their reading ability. The secondary consequences may include problems in reading comprehension and reduced reading experience that can impede growth of vocabulary and background knowledge. This is why we encourage our students to listen to audiobooks at or above their reading level to gain vocabulary and to listen to good reading fluency. The reading and spelling difficulties are a result of difficulty with the following: the development of phonological awareness, including segmenting, blending, and manipulating word sounds, learning the names of letters and their associated sounds, phonological memory, holding information about sounds and words in memory, When testing for dyslexia, one of the tests that we give has the student listen to a series of numbers, and they have to repeat them back in the same order as they heard them, which can be difficult for dyslexics. Rapid naming. They rapid name familiar objects, colors, random numbers, random letters of the alphabet. A part of one of the tests we give is that they read the numbers or letters as quickly as they can. They're timed. And we look for automaticity of that, and sometimes that's a big struggle for dyslexics. Secondary consequences of dyslexia may include variable difficulty with aspects of reading comprehension. Because they are unable to decode words, this impedes their ability to comprehend. However, sometimes dyslexics can pull from those strengths we talked about earlier: intelligence, content, background knowledge, higher level thinking skills to pull meaning from what they read. Variable difficulty with aspects of written composition. We talked about spelling difficulty. So, of course, this affects their ability to write compositions, especially lengthy ones. Reading is decoding the letters into their sounds, and spelling is the opposite, encoding, which turning the sounds into their written letter form. So because spelling is hard for them, written composition will be as well. Limited time spent reading. It takes a lot of brain power and energy for dyslexics to read, and oftentimes they do not enjoy reading because it's just too hard. But we tell our students, practice always helps things get easier and you become better at it. Whatever that is, whether it's sports, games, reading, cursive writing, we just encourage them to practice often. Here are some characteristics of dyslexia. Students may have a few or all of them. I know we've touched on a few previously. Difficulty in learning to read, write, spell, and do arithmetic. Difficulty in following oral and written instructions. Cramped or illegible handwriting. They can be easily distracted, or it's difficult for them to stay on task. Many dyslexics also have coexisting difficulties such as ADHD or dysgraphia, which is the illegible handwriting. Delayed spoken language when they're just learning to speak. Confusion about directions, the right, left, up, down, north, south. High level of frustration or test anxiety. Difficulty retaining information. Paris ISD offers 2 dyslexia intervention programs. Both use proven intervention techniques and are aligned with research-based practices for developing literacy. Take Flight was developed by the Luke Waite Center of Dyslexia at Scottish Rite Hospital. It is taught by a certified academic language therapist. Reading by Design was developed by Region 4 Educational Service Center and is taught by certified dyslexia specialists. Both programs require teachers to go through training in order to be able to teach them. And so those of us that are dyslexia therapists, we go through a 2-year training to get certified as such. Our programs are comprehensive intervention for students with dyslexia. Instructional approaches are used throughout both programs that are multisensory, which is using at least 3 modalities of learning: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. They are process-oriented, where the procedures and strategies taught are intensive and explicit therapy. Information is given in a systematic, sequential, and cumulative order. That's why attendance is very important. Each day's new learning builds upon the previous learning. Both programs are meaning-based, which stresses that word parts have meaning. Our language is derived from Latin, Greek, and Anglo-Saxon roots and affixes, which are prefixes and suffixes, and we teach that as well. We are now going to go through components of both of these programs. What you will be seeing is mainly from the Take Flight program. However, both programs work on the same skills and are similar.
Can you hear me? Good. Okay. All right, so we start off both the Take Flight and Read by Design has direct instruction. Both the programs have 7 components for each lesson. We have alphabet skills, decoding, fluency, phonemic awareness, spelling, and comprehension skills. Both the programs are research-based and they help the children with their reading. On the alphabet instruction with the ABC, we have letters where they recognize the letters. They do sequencing with the letters, alphabetizing practice. So I learn from simple first letter alphabetizing all the way to third, fourth letter alphabetizing. And then also the accent. They find out where the accent is in a word, and that helps them figure out, where they break the word up to be able to read bigger words into smaller chunks. We have decoding instruction. Decoding is looking at letters and translating them into speech sounds. It links all the letters and sounds in English. There are 44 sounds and letter clusters in our English language. The codes, they learn signals their brain to the sound that they need to hear. So when they see this, when they do their coding, it helps their brain go, oh, I need to make that sound for that word. And then when they know the coding, and I always try to tell my kids, especially when they're new, I say, go home and show your parents what you're learning, and so that they know what you're doing when you're coding these words. We have fluency instruction. Fluency is reading accurately at a smooth and even pace. We know before we can get to fluency, that's where we want them to be, because that's where they get the comprehension. With Take Flight, we have homework. With the RAP, it's repeated accurate practice, and it comes home after a lesson that day, and they get to practice words from the lesson that they read that day. That helps tie those in. And it's very important to do that, help build their base of what they learned that day, because they're sometimes struggling with the sounds of the new letters. We have instant words every day. Read by Design and Take Flight has instant words. Take Flight has homework in it for that. We have time readings for rate, which we'll talk about rates later on. Phonemics awareness instruction, that's where we increase the sensitivity to know to how they make the sounds and what happens with their tongue, their teeth, their lips, their air, voice, and how it feels. They use mirrors, and we get to really see where the sound's coming from, so they can connect that and use more senses to help connect this learning. It increases appreciation that sounds make syllables, that make words, that form sentences. It develops the ability to separate, blend, and manipulate sounds in words. And then we have spelling instruction. It links the 44 sounds in English with the letter or letters that represent these sounds. We have direct instruction. We do spelling generalizations, and we have spelling rules that they'll learn from. How it's kind of like taking the reading rules and switching them over to spelling. And then, of course, our comprehend instruction, it's getting meaning from what is read. So once we can get them in the reading, and at first, we do the reading for them and go over the comprehension. We preview, we predict, we identify important information, and develop self-correcting strategies, and also learn how to read with prosody. That's using your commas and your periods and your punctuation marks, so that the reading's more enjoyable. So that's the components of our programs that we use every day with these kiddos. And so now we're going to go into reading.
Okay, with reading is encouraged to be independent reading. We also encourage shared and reading too. All of these things are very good for students with dyslexia. A lot of the times we try to encourage independent reading, but once again, them being able to share reading, maybe you read a paragraph or a page and then allowing them to read a paragraph or a page, or even just directly reading to them, especially when it's on grade level or a grade level above their reading, that allows them to be able to connect to the text. It allows them to be able to hear vocabulary and fluency. So the purpose of reading is to connect pleasure with reading, exposure to quality literature, provide a good reading model, increase vocabulary, and expand their background knowledge. Because a lot of times, we always heard that a good book can take you places. So this also helps with connecting to their writing. So the more they have, they're able to read, the more vocabulary and the more knowledge they learn through those things, they're able to transfer that over into a story. So we ask that you at least give them a minimum of 15 minutes per day to read. There is no right or wrong way to read aloud, but anything you can do to make the experience more fun will encourage your kids to love reading for the long term. The love of reading is created by the emotional sparks between a child, a book, and the person reading. It isn't achieved by the book alone, nor by the child alone, nor by the adult who's reading aloud. It's the relationship winding between all three, bringing them together in easy harmony. And that was by Mem Fox, who wrote that. Okay, and what that's just basically saying is that a lot of times, children, it takes them a while, but once they find that special author, that special genre of book that they love, then reading it will connect with them and they'll want to do it. So that's also just as important as the reading itself is to enjoy what you're reading. So we tell parents when we meet with them through our 504 meetings initially about audiobooks, and we have two that we push through our school system, which is Talking Books, and that's an application that's sent home. You fill it out. If your child's identified as dyslexic, you send it back and we fax it in, and then they give you login information. And then there's also Learning Ally, and that's an account that was created and a brochure was sent home that included your child's username and password. So it would be maybe a blue slip that came home with your student's name, full name, and their school ID number on it, that they're able to log in and listen to books. But however, if you don't have either of these, maybe it's been a while and you've misplaced it, that's no problem at all. If you just contact your child's teacher, a dyslexic therapist or specialist, would be more than glad to get that information and send it home with your child. Handwriting practice. So we practice in lowercase cursive handwriting. We don't necessarily focus on the uppercase. The lowercase is important because it begins at a consistent starting point for each letter. So with cursive handwriting, we learn that students, especially with severe dyslexic, it takes the focus off of trying to figure out which way to reverse letters, their B, their D's, their P's, their Q's. And it's just a smooth transition once they learn how to start at their baseline arrow and then be able to connect their letters. So it helps provide a unique letter shape. It's also good because they're not only learning how to write cursive, but they're also learning how to read cursive at the same time. So this is what our cursive handwriting sheet looks like. Generally in class, we go over the first 4 boxes. We practice with them. We have them touch it with their finger to make the letter. We have them take their pencil, trace over the letters, and then we go through a series of asking them what the letter is. They repeat it to us, and then they write it 3 additional times. They're supposed to put a check mark at the top, and they go home and practice writing their letter for that day at the bottom. Okay, for RAP, which is once again almost the same as a rate package, but a RAP is what we do within the lesson. The purpose of the RAP is to connect the printed letter to its name and sound. So if we cover a letter that day, P, then their RAP sheet is going to have a series of words that will, let me see if I can show you. It will have a series of words just like the picture that you see here, where they're practicing that concept. So on this one, it shows that our concept of what we studied that day was short A and short I. So their top starts with all words that have a short A in it. Their middle section has all short I's. And then the bottom is just a combination. And so usually I have the students go home and reread the bottom, since it's both A and I short sound, to their parents. This also is getting them ready for the rate packets by increasing their reading speed while maintaining accuracy. So with this sheet, they're not coding anything. It's just simply them being able to read automatically. Instant words. Instant words look like this. We have 4 days of instant words. Our first day is the cards, and that's where we read the cards over in class. So they shouldn't be receiving instant word pages until day 2. And so they usually have them in columns and they have them in rows. And then we also have phrases and sentences. And the phrases and sentences just teach them how to take those instant words and to read them in bigger sections to sentences, where we teach them not only how to put words in larger context, but also being able to read punctuation, knowing when to raise their voice, when to stop, when to pause, when to show excitement. So we use our phrases and sentences, or usually the last that ends our week off. Our instant words are a list of 300 words that occur frequently in reading. So these are words that they should know instantly. There's not any coding to these words as well because they're irregular for spelling. These are words that they will see 6% of what they read in their textbooks, what they read in their library books, or just what they see in general. The purpose of the instant words is to provide repeated practice of these 300 words so that they become the frequently they see them, it becomes more part of their vocabulary, and they're able just to say these words without any hesitation. So they develop rapid, accurate word recognition.
Okay, well, the good thing is, thank you for hanging in this long, and we're almost there. Okay, I'm going to talk about the rate packet. Rate packets are used at the starting in book 3 in both Reading by Design and Take Flight. And rate packets are used to promote quick, effortless, and accurate reading of words with similar and or easily confused letters or letter groups. A cold read, which means they haven't seen it before, of the story is done individually with each student reading for 1 minute. Then we practice reading words and phrases in isolation. After the packet is completed, students reread the original story to show growth. And it's amazing the growth that happens from the beginning of the rate packet to when we finish up at the end. And then we do progress monitoring. Progress monitoring, the purpose is to ensure that students are developing as expected, and if not, to identify areas of difficulty and aid in decisions about the course of individual instruction. Progress monitoring is done in both Reading by Design and Take Flight, and it allows repeated administrations of 50 decodable real words representing basic phonics concepts from the Take Flight curriculum at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. And we've incorporated that into the Reading by Design program as well. And for those of you who aren't sure about Reading by Design because your child's in Take Flight, well, Reading by Design is a comprehensive program that addresses the following components: phonological awareness, sound symbol association, 6-syllable types, written spelling patterns, morphology, syntax, reading fluency, and comprehension. Progress monitoring and review lessons are embedded throughout to show student growth in reading and writing. There is some homework built in as well. So those of you that are Reading by Design parents, you saw the homework a few minutes ago and you were like, I haven't seen that. Well, you haven't, and you won't. What you're going to see is you're going to see paragraphs that are going to come home, and they start out really kind of silly because they only have the letters and the sounds that we've learned to that point, and the high frequency words to that point. And as the lessons become more difficult, the paragraphs become more difficult. And the most important thing that you can do with that is make sure that you sit down and you listen to your child and you listen to them read, which leads us to the parent support role. And the best thing to do is complete homework assignments together, listen to them read, let them, if it's a tough passage, you read a sentence, they read a sentence. You can break it down. They don't have to do it all at once. There are things that you can do and make sure that you're listening to them read, make sure that homework, they know it's important, and be patient with them and be positive with them. Don't make it hard. Sometimes it's just tough and you can just say, okay, just take a beat and we'll come back. And so we have a shared responsibility from, between the teachers and the students and the parents, and we appreciate everything that y'all do to support us, and we're going to do everything we can to support you. Questions? Where are we at now?
Tracy, I'm mute. You're mute.
We're going to show another video that talks about dyslexia, and afterwards we're going to open it up for you to ask some questions, and we'll answer them for you.
If you're dyslexic, it's kind of your superpower. It's like the way that you think.
Our brains, they're wired to, I think, process information differently.
It's just the way that you see the world.
I don't think people do think the way I think.
The way I see the world might be different from somebody else, but that's valid. In fact, it's vital.
Dyslexics literally think differently. We have a different wiring of the brain, which means that we're really good at certain things, but we have real challenges at more traditional learning.
The dyslexic brain actually processes information differently. So while it manifests itself in reading, writing, and spelling, and that's where it's most obvious, it's really a difference in how information comes into the brain and is processed, which can create difficulties, certainly in an academic setting, but also amazing opportunities and abilities.
Their minds work in very diverse ways. They're able to see the world in a way that we are not.
So dyslexia is very common. We now know it's about 1 out of 5 students are dyslexic. So if you're a teacher, you've had a dyslexic student in your class.
The strengths they have are incredible. The way they can think around things, the ability to see the big picture.
They are problem solvers. They are outside the box thinkers.
Creative in the way that they can come up with solutions and ideas, but also in the way that they can invent new things.
They are curious learners who are eager to explore.
They have had to develop other alternative paths. So those elements of them often become then practiced, rehearsed, and better functioning.
They tend to be innovators, they tend to be entrepreneurs.
They're spirited, they're often really good with people.
A lot of dyslexic learners tend to be daydreamers, but while they're sitting there, they're not paying attention or being disrespectful. Oftentimes, they're really coming up with innovative solutions.
Dyslexia is neurological. You could look at a dyslexic brain and you would see that it was behaving in a different way.
The average thinker may get from A to B very quickly. It's like they're on a highway. But what I tell my students is that the dyslexic brain is more like you're taking the scenic route. And it may take them longer to get from A to B, but think of all the things they're going to see.
We now know that dyslexia is definitely genetic. And if a parent struggled with reading, if a parent had a difficult time in school, there's at least a 50% chance that their child is going to struggle as well. We also know that if a parent struggled and then a sibling is diagnosed with dyslexia, the brother or sister has more than a 75% chance.
So it is very important for parents to be aware, especially be looking for those signs early on with your child.
We can start identifying a child as being dyslexic really as early as 4 to 5 years old.
I would be looking for a direct mismatch between what a student is capable of and what they know versus the output of learning.
Students who are falling behind peers in letter recognition and matching sounds to letters, or might be inconsistent in it.
Big red flags for us for what we look for are the inability to name common objects quickly, to memorize things that seem everyday and easy, days of the week, months of the year, putting the months of the year in order.
Anything that requires retrieval, anything that requires remembering something instantly and bringing it back.
It can affect how you work with numbers. It really affects how you sequence things.
The earlier we can identify a child as dyslexic, and also the earlier we can help a child understand their strengths and weaknesses, the more of a profound impact that we can have.
We need to be screening all students early and frequently. A dyslexic child should know they're dyslexic, and they should know what dyslexia is. And that is almost the most powerful thing that we can give them.
It's empowering. That label's empowering because it stops being about you. It becomes about a different way of doing something.
The parents knowing that a student is dyslexic really gives them the pathway to start walking down, that there's a direction that they can go in now. And for the teacher, it helps to know that there's a reason why they're not memorizing their spelling words, or there's a reason why they can't read.
For decades, really 50, 60 years, we've had a fairly solid understanding of what we need to do. What a dyslexic learner needs at the end of the day is a strong phonics instruction that's grounded in a multisensory approach. And by multisensory, what we mean is that we want to engage all the different senses or the way in which the brain learns and processes information.
Anything you need to do to support a dyslexic child is great teaching practice for all children.
No one suffers when we build classrooms to support dyslexic learners. In fact, everyone is only made better because of it.
Teachers, parents, employers, really the world needs to be more aware of the definition of dyslexia.
To understand that a child is dyslexic is not rocket science. There are steps that we can take. There are screeners that we can begin to use. There are things that we can look for in order to recognize that this child thinks differently and that we need to provide them the support and the approach to education that resonates and makes sense to them.
We want to be able to democratize this support and help teachers all around the world to be able to understand what dyslexia is, to understand the huge value of dyslexic thinking and the real importance of identifying it and supporting it early.
Imagine a world where you've got, where you've got like a force of people who have this gift of dyslexia educated in a way that supports them. It means anything's possible, It means anything is possible. If you're dyslexic, it's kind of your superpower. It's like the way that you think.
Our brains, they're wired.
Okay, I think that ends our presentation. We appreciate you joining us tonight for our dyslexia parent meeting. We'll now take any questions and try to answer those. If you don't have any questions and you're ready to log off, you can go ahead and log off.
Remember, if y'all need anything, call us at the school, let us know. Set a time. We're pretty busy, so set a time, and we will talk with you at any time we can. Anytime you need any help, we're there.
Yes, if you haven't signed in the chat box, if you can do that before you log off.
Thank y'all again for coming and spending this time with us. Any questions? Hey, Ms. Martinez. Hi, Nyla. Do you want to speak now, or would you like to come to school and talk to me? There you go. Could you come tomorrow? What about 3:30 after school? Will that work? Good. We'll see you tomorrow at 3:30. Thank you. Bye, Nyla. See you tomorrow.
Does anyone else have any questions?